Children with strong academic abilities often fail to discover their other abilities. Don't cultivate intelligence. Cultivate wholeness of perspective, wisdom, inner peace, and take on challenges and meaningful missions. So that's the quote. The quote around children with strong academic abilities comes from our man Ken Robinson, who we're unpacking on like this podcast series, and that book Out of Our Minds. And we've been talking about that for a couple of episodes, Luke. And I feel like we may have gone over this a little bit yesterday, but I think that, have you seen that at all? I'll repeat the quote. Children with strong academic abilities often fail to discover their other abilities. Do you know what that means?
I guess I'm taking the easy way out here and referring back to when you developed a fixed mindset a little bit, but potentially they would, if you have a lot of success in that domain, might steer them towards going towards a very academic domain potentially, and not like pursuing other things where they might not do as well. Like if you're very smart.
Yeah, you're going down a pathway, right? So I think I didn't really get this, and I guess our high school was good at giving you the broader picture a bit, encouraging you to do art and stuff like that. But it is hard. A good example I am an example of is because I had good grades and everything at school, but my dream was film. There was a pressure
To do something
to make something. What a funny default to actually use the marks for something. That was the waste.
Joe, you got a 99 ATAR. You better
exactly.
make use of that. What are you going to do? Medicine?
You better make
what
use of it. I mean, obviously, you go without the box for a sec. The whole game of school and that is a construct. It's just been built. It was built by why? It's not inherently meaningful. If you built towers out of poo at school, someone else would have been the smart kid. Right? And everyone would be like, but you can build a tower of poo that's this tall. You got to do something with that. And then, like, if you take it something that we completely think is ridiculous, then you say, no, that's ridiculous. But if I bring it to something that's just so heavily entrenched to our lives now, you say, these guys, this is a weird podcast. What's you know, if you're smart, you're smart. Like, there's no questioning that. I would question it, absolutely. Because what logic is there in taking someone away from what they dream to do in a supposedly materially comfortable, welfare society, one of the most livable cities in the world in Sydney? What the fuck is the point of all that if someone who's 18 can't immediately start working on their dream?
I got no answer.
And what really happens is that most people now, who I think they're still in a better position, maybe in a better position than a generation ago, but maybe they just didn't have as many options, so they wouldn't feel this, is that people who are our age are coming to like a point of realization now about the reality of what they're interested in compared to the pathway they've invested in maybe for 10 years at this point. Not to say anything is wasted, because you learn and profit from any experience. All right. The book 18 and Lost, a lot of that story is built on my experiences. So it's been alchemized into something positive, which is great. It's what you should always strive to do. Doesn't mean you got to publish it, but reflect on it, learn from it. What am I not going to do again? So that's, if you're in that category, like, be positive about the situation. But yeah, it's like, wow, is there a delay of 10 years or more for a lot of people? Because like, how good is it really, this environment we're living in? So what that quote means is that I believe I had that other, not even ability. I don't like ability because it suggests that you got to be good at it to give it a go. I think you can be terrible at it, but just care enough and be committed enough. I really think there's a lot of, there's famous actors who have never had training, who just worked away. There's people who've come to find incredible odds. There was a podcast episode a couple of years ago I listened to. I think it was on, I forget the name. I don't want to say it wrong. They made a book, Freakonomics. I can't remember. Who she just decided, oh, can I become a good singer? She had no recognizable singing ability. Oh, sorry. She had no recognizable singing ability. She just decides, see if I can, and she became like quite good. And they played a recording of her after all her training and stuff. Like singing is one of those things you kind of told you got it or you don't. It's actually, I think it's bullshit. I think you can actually work on it if you're willing to put in the steps. You can get decent. I don't know if you'll ever be Beyonce or Pavarotti, except I think Luke could. But I'm kind of jumping all over here, coming back to the point. Because you are thriving on the metrics that society does value, it can be dangerous because it might lead you away from what you're most aligned doing, in a nutshell. And I planted the seed yesterday that if we're not optimizing who we're looking for or trying to work with, encourage for intelligence, what are those variables we're really hoping to see in people? And I'll resist the urge to just jump in, and I'll leave the space for you to potentially say something that's incorrect. No, I'm kidding. But do you have thoughts? Do you have thought? No, let me be an idiot, please, Joe, so you can make a mockery of me. But do you see things like these are traits that are really good in people? These are traits that'll make them thrive in any situation, as long as they're
Are you saying
approaching
just
with
as
certain
an
attitude?
observation?
All right. So say you're hiring.
Yeah.
You've got a company. You're hiring.
Mm.
You've got someone who's applying for the role, great marks at school, great marks at university, got a degree, got all the qualifications.
Yeah.
But let's just say, for argument's sake, can't tell if they're really why they really want the job. You don't know, and you don't really click with them. Got another person with no qualifications, but is like super eager for the role, right?
See, there's a big difference, and there's a subtle picking up on someone's energy is subtle, but it's there, and it's, if you look for it, it's very noticeable. And I guess if I would approach that, the way two people communicate, how in tune they are with, body language and all this different sort of stuff is a huge thing, depending on the role, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But you just ask them a bunch of different questions, try and get an understanding of who they are. You would ask some tricky questions to sort of put people on the spot and see what their answers are. That's also tricky because in interviews I'm taking into hypothetical scenarios.
Hey, good point though. How well can you know someone in one interview?
You can't.
How well can you know someone off a resume and a couple of dot points? How do you pick up their energy? Athena, I don't know if you know who Athena is, but she ran an event in the community yesterday on running using your strengths. She goes, when I'm applying for jobs, if it's a paper-based application, it's much harder for me to get the first or deep into the interviews. If it's a video-based interaction, that's where my strengths are. I normally get much deeper. I get 100% of the second callbacks for those roles. And so this strange, funny system of your strengths getting you in the door is one thing. But to me, attitude is always like number one. Yep. Attitude is always number one. What's the point of someone who has on paper competency but doesn't have attitude? Attitude will, to me, trump experience. A lot of people who have experience, a downside of experience, a lot of people, mainly if you're doing a new thing, something entrepreneurial, people who have experience of past a certain achievement milestone, they're not always that kind of motivated. And they're certainly sometimes less motivated to improve. Intelligence is super domain specific. My assumption is if someone has the right attitude, they can pick it up because environment is more powerful than anything. So if you're in the environment, you got people guiding you. My assumption is you will learn. For example, if someone's working with me for constant student, say Liam's out of the picture, you got someone new. There's not really anything they're going to learn at school that's going to be relevant, or university. It's going to be relevant at all. So
Yeah.
a degree or something, it's like, great, just put that over there. Now, who are you as a person? And to me, it doesn't even signify. A lot of people say, oh, but you've completed something. And obviously, as I'm a very big cynic of most people's university pathways, I would almost think, is this person just going to see something through for the sake of it? So it almost like might work against someone who wants to work for me, maybe go to someone else then.
Yeah.
So that, to me, it's no information, or
Well,
maybe negative information, but I'm very specific.
mm,
But then the question is, all the information, like what's community building, what's the tech tools we're using, none of that takes long to learn. I didn't know it 2 years ago.
absolutely.
So this whole knowledge, intelligence thing, to me, that's why the creativity is way more important. Because if they can think creatively, that's rarer. That's rarer. So I'd optimize for that.
Why, like,
If it's a creative role.
Right. Like, why is this person doing what they're doing? That if you can somehow uncover like what the motivation is behind why they're applying for the position, like they could, for all you know, just be in a transition phase, looking to have a little bit of income
Exactly. And that's
before
not
they
a
do
long
something.
term.
No, that's like, you're not going to get the most out of someone like that. And also, what if you get someone hyper intelligent but just cannot see outside of themselves, or understand, like, as in, understand when they've made a mistake, or learn from a mistake, for example, or can't work with people.
I want to make sure we clarify. I don't hate on anyone who has good grades or intelligence or anything like that. I was making a contrast for an example. You can be incredibly smart and creative, obviously, but it doesn't have quite the merit, I think, that people endow it with, is probably the takeaway. So this is a great episode for someone who doesn't think that they have a big IQ or they're not academically strong. Hopefully you have a lot of belief. I really think you do. So I want to continue. This is a really good thread to continue in the next episode. Again, probably talking a bit more about Ken's ideas himself. Education should not be knowledge-based. So we'll be back tomorrow on the podcast. Remember to jump on the newsletter for a once-a-week summary. Just go to the link in the description, Everything Joe, and we'll see you again.